Hey kids, just a little disclaimer that the audio might sound a little wonkier than usual because I had to get this out by myself, and my team is dispersed dealing with life right now, as we all are, and I hope you all are hanging in there. So I wanted to just get this out anyway, and it's just a little more raw than usual, so I apologize for that, but thanks for listening anyway, because this is what I think you need to hear. As always, I'm thinking about you and working on this renaissance round the clock. I hope you are too. Enjoy. Hello, world. How are you holding up out there? I am here at the nest. I just got back from a dip in the Yuba River because it has just been so hot here. Last week was like 100 degrees every day, and it really caught me off guard. I forgot what that kind of heat is like here. Because you can't get anything done. It's like all you can do is get to the river or a shower or a popsicle as fast as possible. And so all the things I was trying to get done, I was just really struggling last week to do, and I was just like angry and frustrated and hot and bothered and all the things. It was just, all that. And then finding out, 2 people that I love dearly have cancer. And so that's, that always is really hard. The people we love, we enjoy riding this ride of life with. So that's been going on, and I'm just here. I'm like given another emergency broadcast, from the outskirts of COVID. My team is out dealing with life for the podcast, and I'm just feeling like shaking things up a bit in my own life, figure out how I can get some traction on some things. So, which is really what Mercury retrogrades are all about, which we're just coming out of. We'll still have like a little shadow catch-up period, but we had those eclipses and this Mercury retrograde. And now I'm not an astrologer, so don't quote me on this, but I think I heard that every planet is going to be retrograde at some point this year. We'll have to find out. I'll have to see if that's really true, but if that is true, that would make sense, because every single planetary energy is telling us to do some housekeeping and make sure we know what we really want. So that's a good thing to do during these retrogrades. It's just a time to look at the map, clean things up, make sure. And so I was doing a lot of that myself just for my life. One of the main things I did, I was mentioning before that I was going to cancel my Patreon, and so I don't have anything else to replace it yet, and so I had to, that's like a loss of income, just deciding to do that, but and taking this risk that people will follow me again when I get the next form of it together. That's always a risk, you don't know. And then I also was feeling just like I was being really put in some really tight confining boxes. And one of the main places I was feeling that was actually on my own email list, which was very strange because I just built it up again. Since I got out to the West Coast, I sort of started over. So that's only been like 3 years. But yeah, I was just like, you know what? Like, it was like a lot of people who had followed my old career who maybe weren't really into like the whole new occult addition to me, being all about sex and comedy. Yeah, so I felt that I really needed to kind of protect I don't have enough roots in the sort of new way of being that I want. So I felt like I needed to kind of protect myself a little bit by cutting the materialists loose. And, I just find that whole materialist thing very confining. I had to work through it myself. It's, I think, what we have to do in this life. And what I call materialists are like people that are very, what you see and what is what you get, that there's nothing else going on. There's no, that everything is all facts and it's like this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's just not been my life experience. And I just can't take that kind of constraint right now. I'm protecting my little fledgling spiritual state that I'm in, and I'm trying to protect it not just for myself, but for the whole culture. It's hard getting these muscles like really activated. Actually, and astrology is great for that. Like even these retrogrades, it's really satisfying for me to believe that I'm influenced by everything around me, that I'm part of this great living, breathing, always emerging earth, and that even the far out planets are having some sort of energetic effect on me. I mean, that's a great, beautiful feeling. and getting the hang of all that, like how to understand working with all these different energies and getting coherent and being able to articulate it all at the same time. It's like it's a lot of work. You experience it through your body, through your emotions, through these other ways, and then you have to be able to put it into words or defend it or, just sort of be out in the material world with it more. And so I'm almost there, but I felt like I just needed to start over with people that were ready to have this sort of more spiritual discussion in addition to making space for me to shake my tits at 46 if I want to, and will do probably for the rest of my life. So, there's people that don't even like that. Yeah, I think it's important to fight to be all of me, all my talents and passions, no matter how complicated they are. Yeah, resisting other people's attempts to contain me in their limited worldview is a big job, let me tell you. And I left that world for the re-enchanted one, that I was talking about, where everything's alive and everything's talking to me. And I like this better. I lived in that smaller view for a while. Society, my own personality has just always been at odds with society. So I've been at this a long time. So that's why I felt compelled to talk to you all and say what I think you need to hear right now. Because it's a pressure cooker out there. I'm not alone in it, and you should know you're not alone either. But it is uncomfortable right now for a reason. These are the growing pains. These are the places that will temper and shape our character for a long time. And I'm coming at this, I accepted my life as an adventure a long time ago. So for me, I'm like, okay, this is the time, this is what I've been preparing for in some ways, And so we have all these retrograde periods to do these reviews of our goals, of our dreams, making sure that we mean it. You got to really want it, you have to keep that fire, passion burning inside of you. You can't let that little flame die in your heart. You just can't. And I know it's hard. It's like it just feels like reality, survival, reality. Oh my God, life and death and all these things. Each time you just got to shake that off and be like, that's not how I'm going to live. I'm going to live enjoying this day, searching for the joy as much as you can. And keep your little fire lit for your dreams. And I feel really beat up. I mean, God, COVID just beat the hell out of all of us. On top of that, our culture before COVID had already morphed into this soul-crushing, shaming and blaming, like wet blanket of a society. Like, that was our culture. That is the dominant, how this music sounds. It's not even music. It's like a single note of wet blanketness. And that stuff, I have been fighting, and I still am, because that means if our culture is like that, shaming and blaming people into silence and paralysis, and they can't keep their dreams going, and everything's just unable to have any sort of vitality come back to it, then culture can't be the refuge and this fountain of endless inspiration that it's supposed to be. And, so I'm an artist. I know this. And it means I have to live on the frontier so that I can see society from a distance a little bit. Always lived on the edge of outside culture a bit, my own sort of subcultures. Because artists are the map makers. We're making the culture, the maps for the culture. It's like the other day I was watching someone go before me hiking up this mountain, and it was like, I could choose to decide if I wanted to follow him or take different steps, but he was out there doing it first, showing me that it could be done, and then I could refine it along the way. Artists are making these maps, going out into uncharted, rarely traveled places, and just reminding everyone that there's these other ways to go. I joke all the time. I say, I live this way so you don't have to. I think my life as an artist is an act of service. I bring this wisdom back for everybody. That is what an artist is supposed to do in a healthy society. It's hard then, because for me, it's, the further you get outside of the mainstream, the more likely you're othered about it. It's very easy also for people to mistake your intentions because you're already acting outside of anything considered normal. So that just people, they have no frame of reference for it sometimes, so they act all kinds of ways, to me being me. Even when I'm standing there with my whole heart in my hand, it's like you'd be surprised what sort of resistances and walls are just sort of put up, and how any of your best intentions are just twisted into something else. It's hard. This world is like extractive that we live in. This materialist, capitalist, more world that we all are trying to breathe in, but can't. It's like killing everyone. It's like everyone's trying to get something out of every situation, and that it's like everything has to have like an immediate, like obvious, like thing. No one will sit in anything uncomfortable a little bit to see what's on the other side of it. It's like, nope, they're thrown out. They're disposable. People are disposable. No, the universe wasn't bringing you into my life for a reason. That's ridiculous because you're making me feel uncomfortable. That's dangerous. I have to end it. I get it, but it's hard. My open-hearted gifts being met with skepticism or even hostility and then rejected, that stuff hurts, hurts every time. It stings. It feels like rejection, and it bruises a little bit. And I have to process those feelings so it doesn't stay inside of me, because I know it, like I can't function like that. I feel the weight of that, and that, it's like you gotta let it move. But remember, rejection is always protection. That is absolutely true. Please always, always remember that. We just can't see it when you're in it from our limited little human perspective at that time. Each of these little rejections is actually like rerouting you to get you back on your path, to do these little adjustments. So if you pay attention and follow, it's a little easier usually. You have to keep your lens open really wide and just let time go by, because then later on you'll find out, oh, that rejection, oh my God, I'm so glad that didn't actually happen. Because then this other amazing thing happened, and that's even better than I could have ever thought of. So, yeah, I will say I recognize that everyone's life just feels like a total emotional roller coaster right now. So encouraging all of you out there on your own frontiers, stay really strong and don't run away from the discomfort right now. Stay in it a little bit. See what this growth moment is giving you, because it's either going to be discomfort now or pain later. Because if you keep resisting the lessons, they will bonk you on the head really hard. I like discomfort better than pain, for sure. Pain is we only learn through desire or pain. Right? You have to, through desire, if you want to climb the mountain bad enough, you will get out there and climb the mountain. Through pain, if you fall off the mountain, break your leg, have to nurse yourself back to health, and then figure out how to get back up there, you're going to be even more motivated. So yeah, just stay with the complexity of things a little bit. You don't have to like make decisions fast. You can kind of get to the other side of a situation. Just be really patient. And we all need clarity. That's really what we need, is because we can't start rebuilding communities and careers and lives, all of our social fabric that's completely unraveled. We can't even get it back together again, because we actually have to get really clear with ourselves. Clarity that has to come from the inside. So a number one quote of all time from the Temple of Delphi: know thyself. This is the best one. When you know who you are, you know what your dreams are, what your passions are, you're familiar with your limitations and how to work with them, and how nothing is an obstacle. And you're able better to make the world around you as close to your dreams as possible. Know thyself. Also remember, pleasure doesn't exist without the knowledge of pain. So actually, pleasure is sweetened by pain. You can ask any dominatrix about it. But as for getting to know ourselves, how do you know yourself? So there's a lot of stuff that is usually lumped under this term of shadow work, which I feel like is easily misunderstood. Took me a long time to understand and develop some processes around it. You hear this fly buzzing around. It's like summer in California. It's hot. All the doors are open. Flies are around. And I'm just trying to get through this podcast. So where was I? Oh yes, I was saying that when you're out as a traveler on your mystical road, people are like, oh, shadow work. Yeah, gotta do some shadow work. Gotta get in there and wrestle with my shadow. Yeah, find out what's going on. All these things. So I just want to talk about that a bit. I'm going to start with this Carl Jung quote, because he actually is the one who identified what the shadow is. And he said that it was in all of us. So he says, all those qualities, capacities, and tendencies which did not harmonize with the collective values, everything that shuns the light of public opinion, in fact, now come together to form the shadow, that dark green region of the personality which is unknown and unrecognized by the ego. So that's a good quote. So he's saying that public opinions is what sort of makes these values get pushed down out of the light and into the darker regions of our personality. And he's saying that these darker regions of the personality are unknown and unrecognized by the ego. So the ego is like our consciousness, what we're aware of, and it is unknown and unrecognized where all this gets pushed down to. And that's really my experience. So I just want to clarify something, that like just because it's in the dark doesn't mean it's bad, evil, anything. It's just not visible and unknown and unrecognized by our conscious selves. So that's it. There's not like a lot of drama here. If you want drama, you can make a drama. Certainly, we've all made this drama before. I know I have. But there's so much talk lately about the need for shadow work, and it's true, but I just don't feel like it needs to be so heavy and so feared. It's like, I think it's been a really fun and rewarding process of self-discovery for me that should be ongoing throughout the courses of our lives. I mean, it's not just like a one and done thing. I've taken classes on shadow integration and on inner child work, and to me, I now pretty much feel the same about them, that my inner child I see as my shadow. It's me and my shadow. That's my sidekick. That's my best buddy. That's the one who, really has my back. No one connected this for me. This has really been based on my own experience, but I haven't found a satisfactory explanation as to why they are different. And for me, I've just kind of, treat them as the same. And so far it's been working out. I'm fighting for all the abandoned inner children out there. No inner child left behind. And if we're treating our shadow work, we're shaming and blaming shadow, and we're, acting of all this drama, you're going to be avoiding this whole other part of you, which is a really beautiful side to what they call integrate into your conscious life. So, and getting that online is a bit of a process. It takes time to get those muscles strengthened, but you can do it. It's a place I love to go, the unconscious. I mean, that's where artists spend a lot of their time. I feel like I'm, kind of a free diver out there in the ocean of the unconscious. Yeah, I just want to take away all the scariness around shadow, like it's this big dark thing that's trying to trick us, or that's like just devious or mischievous. Just let all that go. It's just what you can't see. It could be good or bad to your conscious self, depending on what you find there. But in the unconscious, the thing is, those judgments don't even exist. The laws that govern the visible conscious world are just completely different. In this material world, it's really useful to understand gravity and cause and effect, right? In this mundane material world, those are very useful things to know. However, you need to really respect and understand the world in which you're trying to enter, and enter it without judgment. So the world of the unconscious is completely different. It's formless. Nothing is taboo. There's no shame or blame. There's not even action or consequence. Things happen out of nowhere. People show up out of nowhere. You can morph into a wall. Anything can happen, right? It's not beholden to any sort of sequence or linear story. It's just upside down and backwards and whatever the hell it wants to be. So for my dreamscape, I would say, and I don't know if this is everyone's, but what I've noticed about some of the landscape of my dream life is often there's low ceilinged buildings, and there'll be windows out to nature, usually some the very enticing nature, you know, like an ocean or something going on. And then there's just never any glass or barriers. You know, you could, the walls come and go. I could put my hand through a fish tank. There are windows, but, you know, I could easily just be outside through them. There may be, you know, roofs without walls, all that sort of thing is pretty common of the landscape of some of my dreams. And when messages are delivered, or I have I would just say a conversation, lips don't move. It's like it's intuited or known. It lands in you what the exchange is about. I've described it before, you know, the lunar way of thinking being like filling a bucket by putting a hose in the bottom of it and letting it fill from the bottom up, being a lunar way where it arrives. Or if you could stand over a bucket and let it spurt out, you know, makes a lot of noise and you see it the whole time, that's like the solar way of thinking about it. It arrives in you from the bottom up, so it's an intuitive way of knowing. And even like my sex dreams, you know, it's like it's really about like merging and integrating in this like gorgeous kaleidoscope with this other person. And it's like, it's not ever like blowjobs and fucking, really. It's like anything can happen. And, you know, there's a lot of mystics and great thinkers out there who think this whole parallel world between our unconscious and the dreams and all that is being lived out contemporaneously with you know, as our spirit body is actually doing that. So I don't know, I'm keeping an open mind. Back to this big ocean where I like to go swimming as my inner child. So when I extend what I know about my dreams, my nighttime dreams, into when I think about the unconscious, with shadow and my inner child, I think of this part of myself that she is me as a little girl. She is someone I want to take really good care of. And I want to get lost in her world because she shows me all these beautiful things I never thought of before. And it's really very close to the same me I actually was as a kid. You know, she loves nature and music and coloring, roller skating, swimming, sewing, mermaids, butter, red licorice, and pizza. You know, it's like me and her, we love the same things. So we have lots in common. You know, that means we hate the same things. And she just expresses it differently. And if I ignore her and deny her dreams, or I just ignore her and misinterpret and keep her confined, things come out sideways. That is, I think, why sometimes our shadow gets this reputation as like the trickster and always up to no good. Because it's like you sort of understand there's a lesson in there, but it's like it doesn't feel good. And I think that's when, you know, there's a part of ourselves that's kind of pissed off and neglected. That's one way of thinking about it. Because it's not like when I think about doing shadow work, it's not like I'm going in to like fight with villains and confronting monsters, which is like how so much of the shit on the internet sounds right now. And you know, I've had periods of that. I truly have. During my divorce, I intentionally went in and fought battles with my own conditioning, with my family's trauma, with societal restrictions and projections, and even my own avoidance of the truth. But it's not really happened that way since. Like, that was like a really big, you know, maybe do that once or twice in a lifetime. Those sort of big ones like that. But even now, if I had something like that, I think I could just make it more fun. Because my day-to-day shadow relationship it enriches my life a lot, you know, and it's a language that I want to stay fluent in. I want to keep that super strong connection to myself. That means I have to go down there and go looking often because it's not visible. So you have to choose to go look at it. But yeah, all this language out there is pretty grim, and I understand. It's like they think they're going in to wrestle in a jello match with Kali herself, and she is like armed at the teeth, and she could see all the severed heads of everyone she's ever killed, and blood is squirting out everywhere like the Bellagio. You better get ready to rumble, because when you go in the ring with Kali, she is going to strip you naked, flay your soul, rake your dying soul over the fucking coals for all eternity. But I'm telling you, it does not have to be like that. I mean, it can be like that. I'm not going to tell you how to run your life show. You can love or hate whatever you want. You can make shadow work a lot of drama if you want. It's just totally optional. It is exactly like that Buddhist saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. If you want to write a war epic about it, that's fine. Could also be a quirky comedy. So wherever you need to be, you can do it. There's a time and a place for everything. Yeah, but in general, it's just a really smart habit to develop, like making the choice. I'm going to continually look at personal motivations that I have for things that might not be on the surface. Like you have to go in and look. Okay, so you're hanging out with your shadow, and it's like you can do this through your imagination, you can do this through writing, you can do this through masturbating. I mean, you could do this lots of ways. Life is just a lot more enjoyable when we take care of our shadow and our inner child. And learn the language. Don't make this like your high school French class. Make a friend out of your shadow, because that's really who they are. That's your secret, invisible best friend who's always working for your evolution in their own way as well. And just because you don't understand how things are coming out or what their needs or wants are, you can go find out. You can start to pay attention and keep going. Go further than you think you can. Add some space, like breathe around some of your resistances. Call this like turning over the rocks, like seeing what's underneath. You know, what is that fear that's keeping me from saying yes? What is that? What is that? Why can't I say yes? And then you get to the bottom of it, and then your little you inside is like, feels maybe heard and acknowledged, those fears that maybe aren't on the surface, but are still there, still holding on a little bit. You're able to work through them a little bit. And so then all of you is more on board for the ride. And, you know, you could even throw the most epic welcome home party for yourself of all time, because that really is where your home is inside of you. There's like nothing that you could chase outside that is going to replicate that feeling of really coming home to yourself. Everyone needs some of these ongoing fear-facing practices that help us get to know who we really are and what our work here is about. You know, fulfilling your purpose, keeping that fire lit, your passion, and really going for it. And you know what? And when you do this, don't go into like your shadow work as a scientist where you're like dissecting and categorizing and judging all these things. The world has way too much of that. You have to think like an artist, like your child self, like the one who is just like endlessly curious and full of wonder about the magic and potential of your life, because that is what's really interesting, and that is what's really true. Your life is magical and full of potential. And the dark is just the place we don't see in the light of day. Be bold. Have fun. You go out there and try some things. See what it's about. But don't be afraid. And so, you know, as I've been doing this sort of work intentionally for several years now, I've been intentionally living my life with this deep, frequent connection and celebration of my shadow, the missing part of me. I'm starting to understand a lot of things that I'm like, why would I do that? That was so dumb. And I'm like, you know what? No, actually, it wasn't dumb. I could see actually exactly how smart it was, even though maybe I felt embarrassed at the time. Maybe that was my unconscious self coming out a little bit. But, you know, I'm starting to act more from that and listen more to my intuition. And it's a little bumpy because not everybody else has their intuition online. Again, everyone, you know, we all did as kids, but it really is a connection that you can always revive it, I will say that, but it can be deadened quite a bit. So it's very confusing when yours comes back and then everyone's denying and suppressing theirs and acting from these other places, which are not their true self. And then when you could see their true self, you're like, okay, if that's what you want to be doing. But if more people knew thyself through some of this work, through understanding who your shadow really is, and going in, looking under those rocks in your heart, and dissolving those fears, that's all it is. These are like just the muscles that you can learn to coordinate. That's going to help you unite the sense of self that you're looking for. It's going to help you feel a little bit more whole, not so fragmented, not like something's missing all the time. And this just doesn't happen. Like you don't just do this once and then you're done. It is not like that. This is like a long cultivation of good energy and doing this. But this is like the little piece, the little missing link that I wasn't getting in my yoga or in other things. Like that sort of did when I started experimenting with other people's idea of working with the shadow, things did sort of gel a lot more. And maybe this is kind of a missing link for you too. And I think probably for a lot of people, because as I said, I'm realizing how people are shaming and blaming and terrified to even do this work. Gotta get all psyched up and be prepared. And I don't feel like crying. I don't feel like crying and throwing my life all uphill and blah, blah, blah. It's like, just everybody calm down, okay? This is a part of you that you need to reconnect to. So that's what I think you need to know. I'm just an artist delivering my news to you all from the wild frontier. This is your favorite little scrappy podcast trying to make actual renaissance and happen in this world. So I can get back to shaking my tits on stage at any age. Just as soon as we can remake a culture that can handle all of it. You guys, we're talking about magic. We're talking about tits. I'm not letting up on any of it. And those of you that are into it, make sure you sign up for my new email list. I'm going to end this with a Nordic rune that I pulled for y'all. It's another method of divination, one of my favorites. The runes are epic. They're so on point every time. And we got Odin, which is the 25th rune. And Odin is really cool. He oversaw prediction, kinship, wisdom, healing, magic, poetry, war, and death. He was the husband of Frigg, father of Thor, and the brother of Loki. So you may have heard of that cast of characters, maybe a little bit. And he had all kinds of adventures. He lost an eye, but then gained even deeper sight. And he was hung upside down from the world tree for 9 days, and then came out of that with knowledge of the runes. And so I'm going to be reading from Ralph Blum's Book of Runes, which is a handbook for understanding the runes, using them as a tool of divination. So this is the advice that the runes have for us today. The unknowable, the divine, Odin, the all-father. And it's blank. There's nothing carved on it. Because blank is the end, blank the beginning. This is the rune of total trust and should be taken as exciting evidence of your most immediate contact with your own true destiny, which time and again rises like the phoenix from the ashes of what we call fate. The appearance of this rune can portend a death, but that death is usually symbolic and may relate to any part of your life as you are living it now. Relinquishing control is the ultimate challenge for the spiritual warrior. Here, the unknowable informs you that it is in motion in your life. In that blankness is held undiluted potential. At the same time, both pregnant and empty, this rune comprehends the totality of being, all that is to be actualized. Drawing the blank rune may bring to the surface our deepest fears. Will I fail? Will I be abandoned? Will it all be taken away? And yet our highest good, our truest possibilities, and our fertile dreams are held within that blankness. Willingness and permitting are what this rune requires, for how can you exercise control over what is not yet in form? The blank rune often calls for no less an act of courage than an empty-handed leap into the void. Drawing it is a direct test of faith. The unknowable represents the path of karma, the sum total of your actions and their consequences, the lessons that are yours for this lifetime. And yet this rune teaches that the very debts of old karma shift and evolve as you shift and evolve. Nothing is predestined. What beckons is the creative power of the unknown. Whenever you draw the blank rune, take heart. Know that the work of self-change is progressing in your life. Alrighty, kids, keep it real out there. I'll be back soon. We have interviews and things coming as soon as everyone can get their feet under them. But thanks for listening in the meantime. I have been your host, Trixie Little. Love you. Mean it. Bye.